Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we are going to look into the dark vault of Disney and Marvel as we look at the top 10 MCU controversies that you won't believe. Some of these you may already know about, and some of them may be completely new knowledge to you, but regardless, all of them are pretty unbelievable in retrospect. However, because I find so many so shocking, I would like to let you know my ranking here may feel a little bit wonky. Like, it was really hard for me to actually rank these, so feel free to give me a suggestion of your re-rank in terms of what order I should have put them in the comments below, because I'd be interested to know what you all think about that. I feel like there are multiple here that are personally worthy of our top one spot. And be sure to stay tuned till the end of this video as I have some bonus content coming up for you. Okay, let's get counting. Number 10, Ed Norton. Did anyone else forget this movie was going to be part of the MCU? The Incredible Hulk came out in June of 2008, a mere few months after the first Iron Man film. Neither was attached to Disney at this point, but both were attached to Marvel, and Norton was set to actually join up with the Avengers in 2012 as their Bruce Banner and Hulk. Norton's demanding level of involvement in the filmmaking process, however, made him problematic. It was felt that Norton was not a team player and was too hard to work with, so Marvel recast the role with Mark Ruffalo, which although seemed like a radical call at the time, now I think back and imagine how strange it would be to have Norton as Banner in the MCU. Ruffalo has embodied him so well that it's hard for me to imagine anyone else as the Hulk. Number 9, Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese made a statement about how he did not like Marvel movies, saying that they weren't about genuine human interaction and psychology, and implying that they weren't really art but were more akin to a theme park, where the actors who are in them are really just doing their best when it comes to what is asked of them. And then the internet basically exploded. Joss Whedon and James Gunn both responded acknowledging that Scorsese is a brilliant filmmaker and that they both appreciate his work, but were upset to hear how he felt. James Gunn in particular likened Scorsese's reaction to the Marvel films to moviegoers' reactions to the Scorsese film The Last Temptation of Christ, protesting it without even seeing it. Honestly, Guardians is one of my all-time favorite films, like favorite films of all time. So it also just makes me sad. But also it'd be really weird if Scorsese really loved Marvel films, because he's Martin Scorsese. Seeing him fangirl over them would be maybe even more unbelievable. Number 8, Nick Fury's eye. When Captain Marvel came out, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the film. But rather than unpack all of that, I'd like to focus on something that I both found hilarious and confusing: how Nick Fury lost his eye. In the comic book, the injury is alluded to as being the result of being caught up in a grenade blast, but Nick Fury in the comics was also originally very different than Samuel L. Jackson. I guess Marvel thought it was time to revisit this event and give it a new explanation in the updated timeline, where young Fury still has both his eyes by the time he's a S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent. The film Captain Marvel allows you to take a look into what Fury was like when he was younger, when he first met Carol Danvers. For one, he's a lot more easygoing, so much so that people actually speculated that the Nick Fury of the future might even be a Skrull. How could these two men be the same person? Just called aging and changing as you grow, but whatever. We also learned that he lost his eye as a result of a glorified cat scratch. Okay, so it's not a cat, it's an alien flurkin named Goose, who is actually Chewie in the comics and poses as Danvers' cat, so at least it's from the comics. But this still left a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth, feeling this lessened and was disrespectful to Fury's character. I personally thought the moment was very funny, but I was also a little confused, as later in the timeline, Fury mentions in another film that last time he trusted someone, he lost an eye, implying that he had a strangely close bond with Goose and trusted this flurkin cat, and that he considered the flurkin cat to be a someone. Huh? Number 7, Ed Wright. If you don't know who Ed Wright is, he was one of the credited writers for AntMan, and was originally slated to be the director for that Origins film. But beyond that, he has also directed such amazing films as Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and all films of the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, which all star Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, and are all amazing. So, he's known for being a pretty out there and brilliant director. Unfortunately, Ed Wright did not end up directing the Ant-Man film due to creative differences with Marvel. Creative differences. Basically, Ed Wright had written a script for the film with Joe Cornish. People loved it. Joss Whedon even said it was one of the best scripts Marvel ever had. But then it came time for making the film after an 8-year on and off again involvement from Wright due to him working on other projects, the previous credits I just listed. Cornish and Wright attempted 2 rewrites based on Marvel's notes, and after the second rewrite, Marvel turned to in-house writing staff, excluding Wright. The script Wright got back displeased him, as he felt they had altered his vision, and he walked. He then left to make Baby Driver. Yeah, Baby Driver. Why, Marvel? We could have had Ed Wright. Why'd you take him away from us? Stop having creative differences with awesome people. Number 6. Black Widow. There is so much controversy around Black Widow's treatment in the MCU, and even Scarlett Johansson's treatment by the press when she appears in interviews and on panels with her fellow castmates. But beyond her being asked about how she looks so good while her male cast members are often asked about their character depth, Black Widow's death was one of the most controversial story points of Endgame. Johansson's opinion was that she felt the death and self-sacrifice was fitting. It was a moment where Natasha had finally felt that she was part of a family, had friends, and wanted to protect them, along with protecting all of humanity. Truly, it was a moving scene, and the self-sacrifice was poignant, but some have referred to the choice of killing off Black Widow as the common comic book trope of putting women in refrigerators. If you're not familiar with this phrase, Google it. There's a website and a ton of memes that await you. Black Widow was just starting to get some real character development just before she was killed off, leaving fans feeling unsatisfied. Her character has always felt like a main character who is just never really fully, properly developed. She is one of the core Avengers, but is only now getting her own standalone film after her apparent death in the MCU. Not only that, but Tony sacrificed himself and got a huge funeral, and Natasha got nothing but a few lines of mourning. Sure, she's a spy, so maybe she can't have a funeral, but couldn't her friends and teammates at least have had some kind of top secret memorial thing? Something. I mean, she might not be dead, and maybe they'll bring her back. I hope they do. Just no Black Widow clones, please. Marvel, please, okay? Not ready for clones yet. Number 5. Mandarin. When Mandarin appeared as a villain in Iron Man 3 and Ben Kingsley was cast in the role, people were obviously pretty excited. Until it turned out that this wasn't the Mandarin at all, but an imposter, an actor named Trevor Slattery, merely acting under the guise of Mandarin. Then comic fans were outraged that they would disgrace Mandarin's image in this way, and use one of the best Marvel villains only to discard him and reveal him as a fraud. Fans were so outraged, in fact, that Marvel was forced to release a short that amended this issue by having Slattery contacted by the true Mandarin during his time in prison. He was pretty unhappy to have been impersonated. Almost as unhappy as all of the raging nerds. Not quite, but almost. IMDb has Mandarin listed as making his true debut in Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings. Yay! Number 4. Ancient One. As much as Tilda Swinton is a phenomenal actress and could play pretty much anyone, when she was cast as the Ancient One, it left everyone doing sort of a double take. What? Tilda Swinton? The Ancient One? The Ancient One is a character very much steeped in Tibetan culture and is presented in the comics as an Asian man. However, because of strict Chinese censorship laws, the Ancient One's Tibetan heritage would have to have been cut in order for the Doctor Strange film to have been shown in China. So director Scott Derrickson decided to go the other way with the appearance of the character entirely instead. Instead, he cast Swinton, with the role actually being written specifically for her, and instead has her character being written as having Celtic descent. This created a great uproar, accusations of whitewashing and depriving an Asian actor of such a great role. Derrickson apologized in the midst of the controversy, ensuring people that his decision was made to protect the integrity of the character, as he felt that the Ancient One in the comics was a stereotype of Asian culture and mysticism, and wanted to move away from that, away from stereotypes. The crazy part, though, was that he said he never thought people would get upset about the casting choice. Like, come on though, Derrickson, come on. Number 3. Agent Coulson. We all remember the death of Agent Coulson. It was moving, heartfelt. It brought the Avengers together at a moment where they were torn apart, divided. Phil Coulson's death made the Avengers. It was a great death because it made a huge difference and set the Avengers down a path of togetherness, turned them into a team, a family. So many times in comics, deaths aren't meaningful, because they never stick. But this one, what? Wait, what? He's alive? In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They brought him back? What? How is that even? That ruins the whole point. Okay, so apparently after Phil Coulson died in the MCU, they brought him back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He was brought back using Project Tahiti, which was meant to be used in the death of an Avenger, using a drug made from an ancient dead Kree corpse to bring them back to life. I don't know. Marvel did this because Coulson had so many fans who were sad to see him go. As happy as fans were about this development, it also incited a lot of rolling of eyes, prompting fans to be kind of disgruntled with the fact that Marvel can never let anyone stay dead. Also, no one ever tells the Avengers this. WTF. Number 2. Diversity. The MCU has gone over 10 years without any queer representation in terms of their superhero community. That is a long time, longer than it took us to get Black Panther, which honestly took way too long, especially considering how big of a character T'Challa is in the comics. Black Panther was introduced in 2018, 10 years after the franchise started. Diversity and representation has always been a controversial topic for Marvel, especially when it comes to the MCU, but even in comics, it has never been Marvel's strong suit, and it's definitely never been Hollywood's strong suit either. The first openly gay character we had in the MCU was played by Joe Russo in Endgame, and was met with a lot of criticism from the gay community. The team expressed that they thought it important that the first character just be your average person. They didn't want to make it look like they were just making a huge show of it. They wanted it to be grounded in reality. The Russos specifically felt that it was important that one of them even portray the role out of solidarity. While some felt this was too insignificant, others applauded the more casual approach, with heroes like Valkyrie being officially confirmed as queer, and a major character in the Eternals film also being confirmed as being gay. Yay! Or at least part of the gay community. We'll see where it goes. Number 1. Terrence Howard. If you've watched the Iron Man films and the Avengers films in the MCU franchise, you're no doubt aware that Tony Stark's judgmental military best bud Rhodey, aka War Machine, was recast after Iron Man 1. The role was originally given to Terrence Howard, and Howard apparently left the MCU due to not wanting to take more than a 50% pay cut when it came to working on the sequel. That makes sense. But what you may not have known is at the time of Iron Man 1, Terrence Howard was actually the highest paid actor in the MCU, reported as receiving between $3.5 and $4.5 million for the role, where Robert Downey Jr. apparently only made $2.5 million. Marvel Studios had apparently agreed to pay Howard an additional $5 million should a sequel be greenlit, but when it was, they apparently offered him a measly $1 million instead. So he walked, and they recast the role with Don Cheadle. Granted, okay, maybe you also know that, but what you really might not know is that Marvel apparently lowballed Howard because he was difficult to work with. Don't get me wrong, Marvel can be controlling too, but Howard is famous for his controlling and angry attitude when it comes to working on sets. Combine that with a history of assault charges, and it's understandable why Marvel wanted to offer him a steep pay cut. A lot of people feel like they actually did that so that they could just move him out of the door without having to be like, "You fired." Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. What do you think is one of the most shocking MCU controversies that you've heard? Were there any changes made in the films that you could just not abide? You were like, it's not okay, I'm so triggered. Let us know in the comments below. And while you're on your way down there, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring our bell for all the nerdy notifications. And speaking of comments, I have some bonus content for you in the form of responses to some of those comments from my last video. Top 10 House of X facts that change everything. Don't worry, there are no spoilers in these comments. Gabriel AJ says, when I hear Marvel, I think of X-Men. Me too. I'm a huge X-Men fan, and I have been since I was a little kid. They are maybe my favorite Marvel or superhero team overall, like ever. Mutant Messiah writes, I stopped reading any Marvel comics after the events of Avengers vs. X-Men, but after hearing positivity on Hickman's House of X and Powers of X, here I am again on HOX5 and POX5, and I'm loving it so far. Yes, yes, yes! Keep on reading. I'm sure it's only going to get better from there. To be honest, I feel like both these series could potentially be my new favorites in terms of X-Men. Maybe in terms of all time. Probably not, but maybe. Anyone that has abandoned this team needs to come back for House of X. It's so good, and it's so beautiful. Alright, that's all the time we have for comments today. This is Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube.